Hi, EricTheCarGuy here. Not in my garage, editing. I've had more than one request very recently for doing front wheel bearings on a Honda Accord. Not going to show the entire disassembly process because that's actually part of another video, which a link will be posted here and also in the description. I shot it all on the same day. I just didn't edit it all and put it together that way. It's funny when I do these videos, the amount of things that I actually forget. Sorry. And some of you are very astute and like to remind me of that. Thanks. If I know I'm going to do a wheel bearing, usually what I do is I'll take the axle nut off and I'll attach a slide hammer to the hub assembly and slide hammer the hub assembly right out of the bearing while it's still on the car. In this particular case, I obviously couldn't do that because, as you know from the other video, the ball joint was broken. So there was no way I'd be able to do exactly that, so I've employed a different method here. This will also work if you just happen to not have a slide hammer. You can rent one from a lot of auto parts stores. Normally they just charge you the price of the tool, and then when you bring it back you get your money back kind of thing. Really up to you, but there is more than one way to get the hub out of the bearing. But the important thing here is what I do afterwards, and for that you're going to have to watch the video. Be careful, wear your safety glasses. Should go without saying, but come on, don't get hurt. Now I have this handy dandy little tool that I use that I found to get the hub out. Because if you're replacing the bearing, you have to get the hub out. If you're not replacing the bearing, you don't need to get the hub out. They do make some tools to get these things apart. I don't have them, and I'm going to assume that you don't. So, special tool number XD45, whatever. That was way easier than it should have been, but I'll take it. Now for my next trick, these 4 fasteners hold the bearing assembly in. We need to get them out. They're 12-point fasteners, so use a 12-point socket. Now I'm going to show this to you both ways. If I'm doing the bearing assembly, I'll do it this way and I'll smack on the bearing because so what? But if I'm just replacing the rotor, like I will on the other one, I use these long hardened bolts that I will thread down into the former location of the other fasteners. I will thread these down in and I will either hit them with a large hammer or I will use an air hammer.
You'll notice that I'm hitting the outside of the knuckle assembly here rather than hitting on the fasteners first thing. The reason for this is I'm trying to knock it loose from the inside of the knuckle, the same way you'd knock a ball joint loose from a lower control arm. Very similar principle. Then I got really lucky by just knocking that out like that. Now remove the fasteners and have a great day.
I have a special attachment for my angle die grinder. It's a wire wheel, and I use this to clean the inside of this bore because I want it to be nice and smooth in here, or as smooth as I can make it, so that the new bearing goes in. Now I take a very thin coat of axle grease and just go along the inside of here with it. Just enough to wet its whistle. Next, you have these 4 fasteners. A couple of taps. The rotor should come off. Ta-da! Alright, next we need to get this hub, or this bearing race, off of this hub. And I'm a little concerned about this hub because see all this annealing around the outside here? If that's enough, in fact I've actually seen them cut grooves in. When a bearing is bad for long enough, it will eat away at this hub. And if that's the case, that means you have to replace the hub in addition to the race. That gets expensive. For the next phase, we will use a cutoff wheel. And what we're trying to do here is we want to cut a groove right in the race itself, not on the hub, just on the race. And we'll cut a groove right in that. Grease may catch on fire.
You want to cut across as much of this race as possible, so you want to go in at an angle in order to do that. Once you've got that groove made, take a chisel and stick it in the groove and hit it with a hammer until the race cracks. Be careful, stuff could go flying.
Once that cracks, done. As you can see, there's a great deal, but not enough to be concerned about kneeling there. On this guy, you can see where there's like a hairline crack that was created that allowed the tension to come off of here from my little groove. You can just barely see that down in there. And then when you hit it with the chisel, it pops it right loose. Now, take a little bit of sandpaper / crocus cloth, whatever you want to call it, and clean up the hub. This little scar that was left by the cutting wheel, don't sweat it. It's not even going to matter. It's just a small little blemish there that once the bearing is installed, it won't even be noticed. These are the areas which the rotor makes contact with the hub. Personally, I like to use my angle die grinder again, and I like to clean up these areas to make them nice and smooth.
After cleaning up these bosses and making them all nice and shiny, now you need to put it inside the bearing assembly itself. So you want to take a good look at the bearing, and you'll notice here that that is the section that goes into the knuckle assembly, which is metal and is flat, whereas the other side has a rubber seal and faces towards the hub assembly. So if you don't put this together correctly, you will be buying another bearing. So make sure that you have everything lined up the way it's supposed to go together, and you know the way it's supposed to go together before you start putting it together. If not, life will suck. Once again, we break out the lubricants, and everything goes together better with lubricants. Just a little bit of axle grease just to get it around the outside of that. Now, I'm just going to tap this hub assembly a little bit just to get it started into the bearing, but I don't want to really apply any force to this at all. If I do, I could damage the hub. So I get the special tool out again and hit that, or you could hit against a piece of wood, just something. Just don't hit directly on the hub. Now that you've got this all back together, make sure it spins. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. Get your brake rotor out. Put that back on the hub assembly. Get your knuckle. Remember, that's only one way that this goes on. The fasteners are offset. Tighten the fasteners on opposite sides to run this down. Don't try to run one fastener all the way down at once. Just sort of walk it in, and it should be fine. And once again, a little bit of grease here never hurts.
Well, that was exciting. Just before I go, I just wanted to thank all of you out there who have left comments about the videos and how they've helped you. Eric the Car Guy, that's what he's all about. That's what I set out to do with Eric the Car Guy. Is I set out to help people with their automotive needs, and the fact that it appears that I am having some effect, and some of you have been helped, and some of you have saved a lot of money as a result, means that I did it right, and that feels pretty good. Also, just crested 1,000 subscribers, so an indication as well that Eric the Car Guy is out there doing what he needs to do. I need to thank you, the viewer, and can't thank you enough. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Go back to doing whatever it is you were doing. Good luck, and stay dirty.